Hey everyone, and welcome to Fan Theory Queries, where we analyze fan theories from all over the internet, but mostly Reddit. I'm Laura.
I'm Michael.
And I'm Spencer.
All right, so the theory that I brought for us to ponder today is Steve in Blue's Clues is a hallucinating inmate. From Reddit user Earl of 711. So
I know that guy.
You are that guy. Steve believes that he lives in a house, but he's actually moving within the confines of a single room. Notice that when he navigates between rooms, his legs just move up and down, but his position on the TV never changes. He doesn't use doors to navigate between doors either. That's because it's in his imagination. Notice that there are no other people in the room. The other characters are an imagined dog and animated household objects. He's alone and hearing voices in his head. Most of the things in the room could be available to an inmate. A simple notebook, a chair, books, and a small end table. He doesn't have access to dangerous items such as knives or scissors, things that inmates wouldn't be allowed to have. Perhaps Steve has committed an unthinkable crime in haste, and his only means of not killing himself was regressing into the mental state of his childhood. Interesting new way to look at this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I mean, but seriously,
My
though,
childhood.
to be the guy hosting Blue's Clues, I mean, there was a point in my life as an actor that I was like, that would be such a great gig. I would love to be on children's TV. But to be constantly alone in front of a green screen, speaking directly to the camera and waiting for a response, and I could see there needing to be a little bit of mental instability in order for this to happen. Y'all think?
What did any of you watch Blue's Clues? I know. So when the show was airing, I was a little bit older than the target age. I believe it was last year. It was the 25th anniversary. So I'd have been around 8 or so. So a little bit older, but I still didn't stop me from watching it occasionally. Of course, as a kid of that age, I always think, "Oh, this is so stupid," and then I would watch 3 episodes in a row.
There, and you'd sing along.
Sing along, and then answer Steve whenever he'd ask questions and all that. But what about y'all? Did y'all watch it?
Admittedly, yes.
I did not. I saw maybe part of a couple of episodes here or there when my sister was watching it. But I just never got into it. I was too old, I felt, at the time to really dive into it. So I honestly don't have very much knowledge of the show other than like a couple minutes here and there that I saw of clips.
Sure.
Fair enough.
Understandable. Yeah.
You'll have a very objective, neutral opinion on this.
So, but you understand what the theory's talking about. You at least have enough knowledge to identify those things that are identified by the Earl of 711.
Yes, I understand the concept of the show. And like I said, I've seen a couple of clips here and there, so I know enough about it to be able to at least lend some credence or disagree with the theory, depending on which way it goes, So I think we'll be okay here.
Okay.
My first question, the first thing that stood out to me in this theory, which is kind of funny, is the last line where it says, "Perhaps Steve has committed an unthinkable crime in haste." Ooh. So what do y'all think that crime could have been?
Something that would make him regress to a mental state of childhood. And if it was, I could see this. What? Go for it. You go ahead.
I think that his crime was stealing mail from people's mailboxes. That's why he's always so excited when he gets a letter.
That could work.
Because that is a federal crime, you know.
But it's also something inmates get mail. Mm-hmm. So if he's getting mail in prison, he could be, this is how he's getting, or he's seeing it in his mind play out when it's actually just an inmate sticking it, or like however it's done. I would guess it'd be another inmate would walk around and hand the mail out and like just putting it through the slot in his door. But it's, but then he sees it as mail time.
Maybe it has to do with animal abuse. And he's trying to make amends in his mind for
like a dog?
Killing a dog or something. Dog fights.
I was wondering if it was some kind of like, manslaughter kind of thing, that it was totally, since in haste, maybe it was like a drunk driving accident or
Mm-hmm.
something. I don't know.
Some sort of accident that he wasn't directly like responsible for, but he did do,
Yes.
I don't know. I have a hard time thinking of anything crazy because the guy that played Steve is, from what I can tell, just like the nicest dude ever.
Really? Yeah.
And so it's hard for me to picture him doing, maybe his crime was being too nice to somebody and it
It's
led to something
possible.
bad. I don't
Some people see that as a crime.
They always say nice guys finish last.
Yeah.
What are you thinking, Laura? When you found this theory, did you think it has any kind of, truth to it or like plausibility?
So to tell you the truth, I mean, there are so many theories about what's going on with Steve here, as far as why on earth is he in this house? Why does he have this dog? There are a lot of theories out there that are quite fun to explore. This one was A, brief, B, pretty funny. The juxtaposition of this guy that's hosting this children's animated television show is also possibly linked to someone's death and is using this as a form of dissociation from that crime. Those are the things that made me pick this. There are other theories that are in this same vein, that he's some kind of, maybe like an ex-CIA operative, and that's why he's always teaching kids about looking for clues. And
I like that one.
Yeah.
But I think what just made it funny for me was the second line about, notice that when he navigates between rooms, his legs just move up and down.
Yeah.
And it's so true. It's
Yeah.
like those the tropes that you see of the silent films, of they had those canvases that roll and unroll on one end and roll up on the other end to make the scenery look like it's moving behind you. It's that same idea being utilized by like computer animation here, of he just pretends like he's walking, but the scenery moves behind him. That always was something that caught my eye and was like, this looks really kind of silly. And then, but giving it this context of, oh, he's imagining he's moving between the rooms because he's stuck in a prison cell,
And he can't go
possibly.
anywhere
And
else.
I would assume with this, possibly like solitary.
Yeah. I could see that.
Because, I mean, and could be why OP wrote about an unthinkable crime. That's why you would be in solitary.
Yeah.
Well, maybe
Yeah.
that's
Thought it
why
was
he's
absurd.
he's so convinced or adamant about when they sit down in the thinking chair and think, because it's an
Think.
unthinkable crime. You can't think of it. Even he that committed the crime can't think about it because
He
it's
has to
unthinkable.
he has to concentrate on something else
Oh, okay.
instead of thinking about it. So he's trying to think really hard about this other thing and not let that other thing. That's how I would interpret it.
Okay. I'm just curious, like, why he would. So he's in prison, and I can kind of latch on to him imagining that he's in another place and fun. He's traveling back and forth and all that, even though he's not really. But like, what is the motivation for him to imagine household objects talking to him? I might even be easier for me to imagine him talking to a dog, but like, because he's not really interacting with these animated household, or he's not really interacting with these objects in prison. So is it just kind of like that he has placed himself mentally in a house, and as he's imagining where he's at, there's a salt shaker over there. I wonder what it would sound like.
So, slight tangent to this theory. What if he's not in prison, but he's actually in a mental institution, and this is all just his brain creating, like, maybe he has like schizophrenia and he has multiple personalities, and that's how they all manifest in his mind.
Nice.
That seems a little more plausible than just a regular jail.
I could see that. I was going to say that if we're talking about him regressing into the mental state of his childhood, I think what they mean is like a childlike state. I think that's what OP might have been trying to drive toward. I will say, and I'm totally going to own it, I was probably a weird kid that even before Toy Story ever came out, I imagined like inanimate things having feelings of like, oh, she used that plate today and not me. Or like the plate at the bottom of this
That's
stack of
really,
plates in
really
your
cute.
Yeah.
I love that.
think about of like the plate at the bottom that, you know, you take the dishes out, you wash them and you just keep putting them back on top, and those plates down at the bottom are like, we never get used.
Oh, well,
That's
I'm going to think
that's-
about that.
That's how I've always thought of things. It's really weird.
Yeah.
Like I still have that thought from time to time. I remember how I used to think that way. What if that's where his mind has regressed to of giving those ascribing feelings and things to those objects, and that's what he's doing here is now they have personalities and are interacting with them because he already gave them feelings.
I really haven't used
Yeah.
this pencil in a long time, and it's making me sad. So I'm gonna start using this next
It's
time I
so
write.
sad. It's been sitting in the cup watching you pick up everything else out of the cup that it used, but it just sits there.
It's very sad.
I know I'm a weird person, but
I think it's
that's
cute.
what happens.
Are there any good comments you found with this one?
I didn't really look through the comments.
I found some.
Okay, tell me about them.
Well, they're both written by someone that deleted their account, so we can't give them credit. The first one says, when Steve left the show and a new Steve, Joe, joined the show to replace him. That could be Steve's time being up in jail and his time to be released. Then when Steve leaves, a new inmate joins his cell. Maybe Steve is scribing his imagination of Blue's Clues into the walls of the cell before he leaves, so when new Steve reads it, he'll start imagining it too. So maybe like the clues on the wall with his paw print, you know. Another one is, to add to that, mail time is equally as big of a deal for inmates. Also, he doesn't go outside to get the mail. It comes to him in his living room. He does go into the backyard on occasion, but I assume that can be chalked up to yard time.
That's fair.
That's yard time. I love that.
I've got some 2 big nails in the coffin for this theory to kill it. Unless,
Okay.
but I'm going to wait if y'all want to add anything else.
No, I think I've contributed everything that I can to this one.
True, right. And I mean, that's really all as far as I wanted to go into it anyway.
Okay.
Sorry, I'm going through puberty now. Anyway,
Oh.
so if you could just, why don't you go ahead and share those with us, Spencer?
Okay, so the
Shock us.
first thing he says, and toward the end he says, most of the things in the room could be available to an inmate: a notebook, a chair, books, and a small end table. He doesn't have access to dangerous items such as knives or scissors, things that inmates wouldn't be allowed to have. And I thought, really, through all the episodes of Blue's Clues, there's never an instance of him using scissors? So I Googled it, and I found an episode, Season 3, Episode 29, Thankful. It's a Thanksgiving episode. At the beginning of the episode, Steve is creating a new handy-dandy notebook in the shape of a turkey, and on the table in front of him is a pair of scissors.
Hey,
That is
question.
very contradictory to what this person has said. Yes.
Point of order. Are the scissors animated and speaking to him, or are they inanimate and he's using them?
They are inanimate. They are actual scissors.
Okay.
A
All right.
usable
Well, then
tool.
I will give that point to your argument.
Secondly, did y'all see the video from Steve last year of
I
him
did.
saying, sorry that I just kind of disappeared out of nowhere. I went off to college, but I am thankful to you.
College.
Yeah, he said, I'm thankful to you
Mhm.
for the opportunity that you gave me to basically essentially do the show, that he was able to get to where he is now because of it, and that he learned so much by doing the show, and he hoped that we learned a whole lot, and basically finishes the video by saying, I never forgot about you. And it was so sweet because, like, I know he's like, I know things are hard right now. You have a mortgage, you've got student loans and all this, but just know that you're not alone, and I never forgot about you. And he's doing this all in character, right? He's not doing it as the actor. And this was in celebration of the 25th anniversary. And so, like, that doesn't seem like a guy that's in jail. He's been in jail.
No.
So
Why not?
Because
Why do you think that doesn't seem like a guy who's been in jail, who spent that much time there, pouring his heart out? This is what helped him. I mean, I don't know that you could say he went totally insane when he's imagining those things, but I mean, because people in solitary confinement absolutely can lose their minds. I mean, much like Tom Hanks' character in Castaway talking to a volleyball, he had that break from reality for a moment, but that honestly might be what helped keep him sane. Could this imaginary house with his little blue dog that helped him find clues, could that be something that he had to do to keep his mind active in order to keep him from losing it? You know, it's like they say about muscle, you use it or you lose it. Same with your brain. You use your brain, every little bit of it, or you're going to lose it. I could see, and he would still keep those things near and dear to his heart of those are the things that helped me not go insane in there.
I think it's a very good contribution. And I think that if it weren't for other things, you would be adding very good stuff to the argument. So something I would not think of. And you negated my recent point. So good job. But then I'll throw back another point to you that after Joe comes in, and then even, I don't remember what the new guy's name is, but they recently, within the last year or so, have done like a reunion episode where all three of them are on the show together. So like, do they all go back into prison and share a cell?
They all share the delusion.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, if it's all in your mind, does it have to take place in one singular location?
What?
So, I don't know.
So was that your mystery bombshell evidence, Spencer?
Yes. The scissors.
I think that was a dud.
No,
okay.
The scissors. The scissors were a big bombshell.
Yeah, I think the scissors are a pretty good piece
especially since, like, if it was just
bombshell, though?
It was, because he made such a big point about it, of saying dangerous items like knives and scissors. He specifically mentioned scissors. Things inmates wouldn't be allowed to have.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe, but in prison, contraband gets shuffled around to people. He might have bribed somebody to hand him some scissors for one time, and then he got caught later during an inspection and then got taken away, and that's why you don't see him again.
I don't think so.
Well, we'll see what the fans think.
Okay.
Yes.
So we'll see what we think. I think it's time for us to rate the theory. So how about you explain our rating scale real quick?
The highest rating that we have is genius. This is reserved only for like the best theories, which we believe are better than the actual canon that's presented. The next step down is plausible, where it's a good theory, but it's just believable. Next down is unlikely. This is not a terrible theory, but it's pretty unlikely, as the name says. And then last, we have preposterous, which these theories are just stupid, and we're all dumber for having listened to them.
All right, so then, feelings on the theory. Let's hear it from you fellas first.
I think it's unlikely. I'm not going to say preposterous, because there are some fun elements about it, and I could, in a very big stretch of the imagination, I could see it possibly happening, but that's a big stretch. And so it is most unlikely in my mind, because Steve is not a criminal. He's a good man with a good heart.
Yeah, I'm gonna agree with Spencer on this. To me, like it's okay. It's fun to think about these kinds of things, but just the dude's too nice. I don't see him committing any kind of crime to get him into prison. So unlikely is my rating.
Okay, on the whole, him not being a criminal, I would like to point out one of my theories about the crime he committed was that it was totally purely accidental. Didn't mean to happen, so not necessarily a bad person in my argument. However, I will go ahead and agree that this is unlikely. I just thought it was a very fun theory to talk about.
Yeah.
I like the idea of it, of that this is his coping mechanism and the way that he dissociates from everything. But yes, I will agree that this is an unlikely Blue's Clues theory.
Oh,
Yay. Good theory. Good find.
Yes.
Thank you. Awesome. Well, Michael, I'm about to send it over to you for your theory, but before I do, I want to say something. We love scouring the internet for fascinating fan theories, but sometimes it's nice to just sit back and let someone else do the work for you. Am I right, guys?
Mm-hmm.
Yep, it is.
So if you, yes, you, listener, have an intriguing fan theory, whether you came up with it or it's something that you found on the internet yourself, send it on over to us. We'll have content for the show and you'll get credit in the episode. Ever heard of a win-win before? Because that sure sounds like one. Our email address is fantheoryqueries@gmail.com.
All right. My theory is a Stranger Things theory. And Before I get into this, I just want to say that I have been out of town all weekend and I haven't had a chance to watch the new season yet. So this is me just coming in with the knowledge up through season 3.
Well, we'll go ahead and confess we canceled our Netflix subscription due to the price increases.
Bad timing, too, because I forgot about this, and I also forgot about the new Rowan Atkinson Man versus Bee thing that looks hilarious. So
yes, as soon as he canceled it, I showed him the trailer for that movie and told him about, oh yeah, and Stranger Things, and he went, what? Oh no. But
what have I done? So listeners, if anyone wants to do some password sharing, hit us up. Our email address, as Laura just said, is fantheoryqueries@gmail.com.
There it is. There it is. All right, lay it on us, Michael.
All right. So this theory comes from Monica at popcornreviews.com. The theory is that Stranger Things Hopper becomes Red Guardian in Black Widow.
Love it.
Yes.
I'm already here. Yes, let's hear it.
All right. So she says that at the end of Stranger Things Season 3, our hearts were ripped out when we realized that Jim Hopper, the somewhat grumpy but still lovable chief of police in Hawkins, Indiana, sacrifices himself to close the gate to the Upside Down, saving Hawkins and our favorite gang of teenage misfits. If you wait until the end of the Season 3 credits, Netflix offered us a sliver of hope that maybe, just maybe, Hopper, aka the American, was still alive. And the isolated Kamchatka, Russia, I believe.
I was waiting.
Yep.
I was waiting for that attempt. I think that was a very bold, good attempt. Good job.
I'm going to stick with it. I'm going to own it. She continues and says, while Hopper's survival wasn't officially confirmed when season 3 of Stranger Things ended, today on Valentine's Day, when this was written, we are given our first look at Stranger Things season 4, and guess who's back? Jim Hopper is alive.
Yay!
And he's in Russia sometime after the summer of 1985, when season 3 of Stranger Things took place. Okay, but how does that connect Hopper to Red Guardian and Marvel's Black Widow? Well, bear with me. Jim Hopper from Stranger Things is played by David Harbour, the actor who also portrays Red Guardian, one of the newest characters to join the MCU in Marvel's then upcoming film Black Widow. So Hopper is alive in Russia sometime around 1985, and if I dare to be so bold, it seems only likely that he will escape his Russian captors in the upcoming Stranger Things Season 4. Here is where my fan theory really sets in. As he vows to get vengeance on his captors and rid Russia of its injustice, could he go down a path that leads him to become the one and only Red Guardian, aka Alexei Shostakovich, the Soviet agent and basically Russia's version of Captain America, who is family to the Black Widow? Of course. He can't go by Jim Hopper anymore, so he changes his name. And in remembrance of the Russian scientist who died helping the Hawkins crew in Stranger Things Season 3, he chooses the first name Alexei. Now, we never learned the last name of Alexei, the Russian scientist who stole our hearts in Season 3 with his love for 7-Eleven cherry Slurpees. But when his death hit viewers and the characters hard, it's only plausible that he left a lasting impression on Hopper too. Fast forward to Marvel's Black Widow, which takes place in Russia between the events of Captain America Civil War and Avengers Infinity War, many years after Stranger Things Season 3's summer of 1985. Here we find Red Guardian, aka Alexei Shostakovich, who is past his prime but still fighting the good fight. Same actor, different universes. I know, it's highly unlikely, but I can dare to dream, right?
Yes, you can. This is America.
And not Russia. So yeah, that's the theory. I initially saw this theory on a video, I think on an Instagram reel or something like that, and then we tracked down an actual article Spencer did, and it's the same exact theory, and I love it. I love the idea of this. I'm personally all for anytime we can make connections between two separate different movie universes or show universes, you know. I think it's great. And I like the idea that Hopper spent his time in Russia, like beefing up and training and maybe being experimented on, which is possibly could have what had given him his superhuman abilities as the Red Guardian. And then he's obviously treated poorly there, so he leaves and vows to come back and wreak vengeance on Mother Russia. Yeah, I like it.
I like it too. I did not watch Black Widow, so I don't have that reference. But
Mhm.
like I said, I've seen Stranger Things up to season 3, and whenever he was cast as that character, when that was announced and as Red Guardian, I thought that was really cool. And like, I'm not gonna say, oh, I thought of this back then that they might be the same character, but I just thought it was an interesting connection that he was supposedly in Russia and now he's playing a Russian character. And I love it. I honestly cannot give any evidence other than what this person has written for or against the validity of this theory, but I
Mhm.
definitely like it. And I like, for the reasons why you said, Michael, that when you connect universes and that kind of thing, it's a lot of fun.
Yeah. Laura, what do you
Hmm.
think?
So I'm trying to put myself in Monica's shoes here back in the time period when she wrote it,
Mhm.
because that is true. Season 3 of Stranger Things ended, and then we got Black Widow. And I'm pretty sure, but I feel like Black Widow probably filmed before season 3 of Stranger Things.
Maybe.
Let me see when
Maybe.
Stranger Things season 3 aired.
Well, I mean, filmed. I think Black Widow filmed before they did filming for season 3. Anyway, with that though, like at that time when we had just finished season 3 and then Black Widow was coming out, definitely, yes, this totally made sense.
Mhm.
But now I'm not seeing that making so much sense anymore, because I did watch Black Widow. I'm sure you did too, Michael.
Mhm.
And I didn't see it in theaters though, but I mean still though. It would have to be a whole lot of back and forth of, because the way that Black Widow starts, he's a Russian sleeper agent, right? And that would take place after this season 4 and season 5. I mean, maybe he could have just been totally like brainwashed while he was
Mhm.
in this prison between seasons 3 and 4, and so that he goes back to America, but then that doesn't explain like this family that he's got with Natasha, and then going back to Russia. I don't know. I
I've got
feel
some
like
dates for
maybe
you.
did Monica write this theory before seeing Black Widow? All she saw
Yes.
was
Yeah.
So this was
okay. So
written
Because in the theory
before
she
Black
says the
Widow.
upcoming film Black Widow.
Yeah.
So she
okay,
hadn't
so
seen it
she
yet.
okay, so she's basing this off of the trailer. So
Yeah.
yeah, that's what punches the holes in it, is actually having watched the movie. It doesn't make sense of him going back and forth and back and forth. I mean,
Yeah.
like, I would feel like as soon as you get out of there, get out of there. But I mean,
Yeah.
again, if he's a sleeper agent and he got the like code word that like made him go and start killing people, I don't know how.
So
Yeah,
does the
that's
movie take place in the 80s at all? Black Widow?
No, it's the early
no.
90s is the first thing we see
Yeah.
with the girls as little girls. And then
Mhm.
after that, we come to that current time period between Civil War and Infinity War.
Yeah.
So having not seen season 4 of Stranger Things, not knowing what happens to him after, like how is that not plausible for him to still be in Russia?
I've thought that what we saw at the end of season 3 was him escaping Russia.
No, because the little tease that we got, the very first tease that we got that was confirmation that he was still alive, was like
Mm.
him working in a Russian work
Okay, so
camp in the winter.
he was still okay being in okay. But
Yeah,
I mean, if we're going to include him in the season, obviously he escapes, right?
We don't know.
we don't know.
Maybe like
Um,
there's an end credits with Nick Fury coming out and says about the
Or is
Avengers
it really
Initiative.
Nick Fury, or is it a
Yeah.
scroll?
So
Yeah.
here's some interesting information. The third season of Stranger Things aired on July 4th, 2019.
Mhm.
Black Widow started filming in June of 2019.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I think that the thing that makes this somewhat plausible for me is like what you said, Laura, the possibility of him maybe being brainwashed and just being a sleeper agent with a trigger word, kind of like Winter Soldier was.
Well,
To
and that's kind
where-
of what happens with the Black Widows too, right?
Yeah, because it's the same, not the same, but a similar type of program. It's just a kind of a sister program, So yeah, I think that there's some credence to it. I'm not 100% sold, but I like the idea of it for sure.
Obviously, things will be very different after watching season 4, and so many people will probably be listening to this after they've seen season 4 of Stranger Things or whatever they're able to watch. But like in my mind, I could think, okay, who cares what? I mean, okay, people care, but like, what if they just? I don't see them ending the series with a nice little bow and everybody happily ever after. Like, I don't see them ending this, whatever you want to call it, chapter
Yeah.
with everyone back in Hawkins, Indiana, growing up in a nice, big, happy family. Like, I wouldn't be surprised if Hopper never makes it back over there for whatever reason. Maybe he's still able to help them somehow remotely. If he can close the upside down remotely somehow from Indiana, maybe there's some mechanism for her to do that. I don't know. But
Yeah.
and maybe they come over to Russia through this wormhole or however he got there. Who knows? But I think, it's very fun to think about. They could have cast anybody else as Red Guardian. Why? I mean, because what else has he done? That's the only thing I know him from is Strange. I mean, obviously
Yeah.
there's IMDb.
I don't think he's ever done anything where he's had to play a Russian character before. So
He doesn't come across to me as the kind of guy that would play that role.
yeah.
I mean, he's not
I'll
a tough
just-
guy in Stranger Things.
From what I've heard of just watching the Johnny Depp and Amber Heard trial of like social media, Q scores, popularity of an actor, and that pitching into their castability, I would think the heat from Stranger Things is what projected him to the top of the suggestion list of who to cast for Marvel.
As well
makes
as
sense.
him also actually being the same character.
Okay, wow.
I have nothing else to add.
Yeah, I don't have anything else. They pretty much provided most of the evidence that I would have thought of. So, yeah. Do you have anything else, Laura?
No, I do not.
Cool. You guys want to rate?
I'll go first.
Okay.
I think that this is plausible, especially like when you compare it to our Blue's Clues theory. I think this is more plausible than that one. And that's not like an insult. It's just the facts. I think it's plausible. And until I see otherwise, whenever that may be, I'm going to stick with that. Hopper could possibly also be Red Guardian in the Marvel Cinematic Universe.
Laura, what do you think?
I'm sorry, I'm going with preposterous on this one.
What? Preposterous? You feel dumber?
You know, the whole exchange of like his teeth are different, he's covered in tattoos, accents keep flopping back and forth, and
back
just
and forth. How do you mean
over-
back and forth?
between Russian and American. He has an American accent when he's in the family at the beginning of Black Widow. And
Okay.
then once we pick him up again between Civil War and Infinity War, he has a Russian accent. I just, that to me, it adds to the preposterity.
Well, that seems like it makes it more believable if he starts out with an American accent
Yeah, because he was
Earlier.
American at first.
in the 90s, which would be closer to Stranger Things. And the
Okay.
more time he spends in Russia, he develops his Russian accent.
You can develop a Russian accent or you can learn it from like having grown up in it. And that accent that the actor uses is somebody who has grown up speaking Russian. Not
speaking American.
I've become assimilated from living here. How else do you get an accent, Spencer, than from speaking a different language?
Maybe I'm not understanding what you're saying. Black Widow starts with Red Guardian speaking English?
Yes, with an American accent.
Okay. And by Civil War time, he's speaking Russian.
Yes. I'm talking about the accent, not the language. It's just too thick and too heavy that an American would not speak with that heavy of an accent if you're talking about the character. An actor, yes, but the character, no.
Why isn't he
Okay.
speaking with a Russian accent at the beginning of the movie?
Because they're posing as an American family, because they're sleeper agents.
Okay.
What were you going to say, Michael?
So I actually had another thought to kind of add a little bit with the discussion you guys were just having. So what if Hopper actually was born in Russia and was trained from a child up until adulthood, and he came over to America and posed as Hopper, the everyday American sheriff, and he was already a sleeper agent at that point. And so all the stuff in Stranger Things happens, and then later on whenever he gets sent to Russia and it's at the end of season 3, they realized that
He's
he
awake.
wasn't able to complete the mission that he was there for, because like this was all during the Cold War stuff, and so they're mad at him, so they put him in this prison and like re-up his training, like re-brainwash him. And then that's whenever he is put into the family with Natasha and all of them and is sent back to America to try again with a family. And then all the events of Black Widow take place.
Didn't
Possible.
he go to high school with Mrs. Byers? I thought they knew
I
each
don't
other from
remember.
school.
I don't remember.
I mean, you can argue it again as far as like Natasha was trained as a child. I'm sticking with it. This is to me preposterous.
That's fair. I just had the thought.
The theory by the author is based off of season 3 of the show and then a trailer for Black Widow. So that's not enough to base the theory off of.
Which leads me to my rating. I actually am going to rate this unlikely. There is some fun little evidence and stuff, and while I like to play devil's advocate and argue the point a little bit here and there, I still think that this is probably highly unlikely that it's actually true. It would be fun, but I don't see it being real.
Okay.
All right. 3 very different opinions.
Yeah.
Yes.
And Laura, we might have to discuss off mic a little bit.
No. I'm separating work from home.
Which means
Which means nothing.
nothing. All right, so we've all rated, okay? But I have a question.
Okay.
Is the Grinch the sole survivor of a brutal genocide committed by the Who's?
Oh.
I think...
Hold that thought. Let's discuss after a quick break. And we're back to talk about the Grinch. This theory comes from Reddit. The user is Evil Valentinflation. The Grinch is the sole survivor of a brutal genocide committed by the Who's. This person based their theory solely on the original book and animated movie. So the original, like the very first one. Nothing like with Jim Carrey or Benedict Cumberbatch. First off, there's his appearance. He's clearly physically different from every other Who. Taller, green fur, yellow eyes, etc. He's a member of a completely different race than the Who's. But there's no other member of that race in sight. We also know that he's not just some genetic aberration. The cartoon version mentions he gains the strength of 10 Grinches plus 2. Not 10 times his own strength, but the strength of 10 people like him, plus 2. So, where are the rest of his people? Simple. He's the Grinch, not a Grinch. They've been wiped out. Every last man, woman, and child besides this one lonely survivor. But who, pun intended, could possibly have done such a horrible thing? Who, pun also intended, do we know that have a near fanatical belief in their religion? Who, this pun was completely accidental, makes up 99.9% of the population and controls all the resources? The Who's. For some reason, their religion caused them to wipe out the entire race of Grinches, leaving only one alive. It wouldn't be difficult. The Who's have massive numbers on their side. One man had 96 daughters, and for a supposedly peace-loving people, seem to have some giant knives, as well as giving their kids javelins and bows. It also would be believable. One of the few things we know about the Who's is how super religious they are. Them deciding to go all Deus Vult on the Grinches for refusing to follow their religion wouldn't be hard to believe. The Grinch survived, likely due to him being frozen in ice, only to be thawed out 100 years later by 2 siblings. More realistically, he likely fled or was already living as a hermit, allowing him to escape the slaughter. He lived at the top of a remote mountain, and due to his cunning, likely had a number of traps and defenses set up. The Who's were content to ignore him so long as he was out of the way. So, of course, the Grinch hates the Who's for killing everyone he ever knew. It's mentioned that he hates them all year round, not just at Christmas. But Christmas makes him even more enraged. He wants to forget about them, but on that day, the noise they make causes it to be impossible for him to do so. Even more enraging, they're singing religious hymns of the religion that killed his people. It's highly possible that Christmas was the anniversary of the Grinch genocide. It's highly possible. It's highly possible that Christmas was the anniversary of the Grinch genocide.
No, we're going with
the Grinocide. I like the Grinocide.
Okay. We'll keep that. At the end of the movie, the Grinch is shown making a change for the better. Did he, though? Notably, both the book and cartoon state that some say his heart grew 3 sizes that day. It doesn't just describe it happening, it states that certain people would make that claim. It's Who propaganda to cover up the harsh truth. The Grinch had grown depressed and knew the Who's would kill him for ruining their special day. He was open to death, especially if it involved screwing them over and letting them know the Grinches would never give up. However, at the last moment, he had a change of heart, not out of love, but self-preservation. He decided to assimilate instead and pretended to join their religion. That allowed him to not live in a cold cave and also granted him a measure of security. If he pretended to be a convert who was truly inspired by them and declared so publicly, the Who religious officials couldn't kill him without public backlash. Too long didn't read. The Grinch is the sole survivor of a purge by the Who's, wiping out all non-believers. At the end, he's forced to convert in order to escape his life of poverty and seclusion. And that's the theory.
Okay, so real quick, I looked up because I don't know all of my religious history. Deus Vult is ecclesiastical Latin for God wills it, and that was a Christian motto relating to divine providence. It was first chanted by Catholics during the First Crusade as a rallying cry.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
So there's that.
First, I'll say, and this just occurred to me because I actually didn't read this very thoroughly before I picked it. The religion, the Who's religion, I'm going to say is a made-up one. Even though it's Christmas, there's nothing that I see in the movie or book that specifically refers to our version of Christmas, like it being the celebration of the birth of Christ. Am I correct? Like there's no crosses or
They
manger
worship
scenes?
Dahu Dores.
Yeah.
Who's that?
Dahu Dores.
Well, I know the song.
Vahu. That's who they worship.
Okay. People have done horrific things in the name of religion, as we all are aware. So, thoughts? I do like this comment from M. the Loud. Has Horton heard
You
this?
asked for our thoughts, and then you start reading comments. What's
Laura, what are
going
your
on
thoughts?
here? So, I have a weird amount of Seuss knowledge. A sentence I never thought I'd say.
Mhm.
However, I'm afraid that in my cross-examining of this, I'm going to bring in evidence that was not brought forth in Discovery, in that I would be using books that were not mentioned. So
That's
will that
not
be allowed? Okay.
No,
Disallowed? We are not allowing
because they
Horton Hears a
explicitly
Who.
state that this is based off of those two things.
Okay, Horton Hears a Who is out. All right, then read your comments while I think of something else.
Okay, so this might help you. Michael, did you have anything before I read the comments?
No, go ahead with the comments.
Okay. Statisticus says, exploring this idea a little further, does he really convert at the end, or is it just a ploy? In the book, the last page shows us the Grinch sitting in the middle of a big gathering of Who's. They think he has come to join in the festivities and carve the roast beast. I see him holding a big knife with a beatific smile on his face and wonder if it's vengeance at last. I'm vengeance. So having read that comment, Michael, do you have anything?
Yeah, I'll just lay out pretty much all my thoughts on this. So I actually like this. I have always thought that the Who's were really annoying, personally, in this story, and not that I necessarily agreed with the way Grinch handled things. I just have always been sympathetic towards his reasoning. I've had neighbors before in places that I've lived where they make a lot of noise. They are singing, playing music all the time. I understand how annoying that can be, especially when you're trying to sleep. And
especially if they killed your family too.
Exactly. I'm getting to that point. But just based on the annoying neighbors bit, I can see he's a little justified in what he does. Now, if it's true that the Who's killed his entire race, then yeah, like, it makes sense. I mean, this is a fake religion, but I'm going to compare it to what happened with like the Crusades and things like that. It was the Catholic Church basically deciding they wanted more power, so they threw around God's name and did despicable things to people and were completely the antithesis of what they were preaching, essentially. We've seen it happen in reality. I don't see why it couldn't happen in this piece of fiction, you know? And just that, coupled with the fact that I think the Who's are annoying, honestly, I would like to think that they are the ones responsible for all this. Yeah, that's where I'm at.
Okay, Laura?
Okay, I've formulated something here.
Okay.
What if this is an allegory for the plight of the Native American?
Okay.
Of the Grinches were indigenous to the area. The Who's immigrated from another part of their speck of dust that they live on and brought a disease that Grinches were especially susceptible to. And that wiped them all out except for Grinchy Poo, so that he is isolated in that cave, and therefore that's what ended up saving him from the disease. Also, from what I remember of that original animated film of this, Max, don't forget Max, he's very important. He's like the only dog around.
Yep.
And that is also a very rare specimen in the area. Along with the Grinch, Max the dog is very singular in his existence as well. And yes, I could see, maybe not the genocide, maybe not the
Genocide.
crusade. Yeah, sorry, my apologies. The Great Genocide by the Who's, or a holy crusade. But I could see this as being just expansion. Again, it still kind of follows along with what you were saying, Michael, of looking for more power. And the way they find that is by expansion, discovering, settling, claiming these places. But it was just a disease that they carried with them that spread to the Grinches and the dogs. Oh, the dogs. And that's how we got where we are now.
Yeah.
And the Grinch, maybe he sees this acceptance as a way of getting some kind of resistance to the disease, or like an inoculation, or maybe that by this time, because I believe the big thing as far as for Native Americans, it was smallpox, which we've pretty much eradicated by this time. So possibly for this story, the Who's have by now eradicated that disease, and so now the Grinch doesn't have to worry about it anymore when he goes around the Who's.
Depends on how old he is. He has to be up in that cave a pretty long time.
That's true.
It does make you worry too about the fact that his heart grows so fast,
Yeah, he needs
so
to get that
large. That is
Well, hold
a
on.
big health implication there.
It says that they said that his heart grew. Some say his heart grew 3 sizes that day.
But in the cartoon, it even shows it, because remember they do the quote unquote X-ray, and the X-ray shows the heart grow.
That is a representation of what some say.
Okay.
I like that because there has to be some explanation of why he's the only one like he is.
Yeah.
So I like that. I love that they say that the Christmas is the anniversary of this happening, because that makes his hatred of that particular day that much more reasonable. And especially like if I'm putting all these things together, including this person's comment, like if he's pretending to assimilate and pretending to join the religion to get his vengeance, there he's prime and ready. Like he first tried to get his vengeance by stealing Christmas, and then that didn't work, and because they still sang, and so he's like, you know what, they still are happy, I'm going to give them back what they want and pretend that I have seen the errors of my ways, and then I can go on a slaughterfest with my knife.
Yep.
Maybe he's gonna wait until they like just feast themselves into a coma,
Yep.
and he'll do that whole like, I'm pretending to eat, but I'm throwing it over my shoulder. I'm not really
Yes.
eating.
Yep.
So then he is primed and ready to go on the offensive there. Yeah.
Yeah.
I love it. All right, so here's what we're going to do. I want you to think of your verdicts, but before you say them, I want to share this awesome piece of collaborative poetry. In the comments of this theory,
Okay.
everyone basically took turns adding stanzas, rhyming stanzas to reenact what happened. So each
Okay.
stanza you hear is a new user adding onto this narrative thread. So here we go.
Totally down.
So what happened to the Grinches? Well, in Whoville, they claim, those green ones had it coming. We're not to blame. We gave them a chance, said the blood-spattered Who's. They had plenty of time to change their religious views. So we stabbed them with sword and we bashed them with mace for the glory of Whoville and the superior race. So remember, young Who folk, on this most festive night, that old Who folk saying, it is might that makes right. And be sure to sing loudly on each Christmas day to make that Grinch suffer from his cave hideaway. loud and performing, we'll be here all night, and the Grinches stay quiet, scared of the deadly who might. We'll have the last laugh, the Who's gathered to say. The mother of the Grinch was the roast beast carved that day.
Mm.
Oh
Wow. Wow.
Whoa, okay.
All right, so
All
Michael,
right,
what's
then.
your rating?
Reddit users are harsh, man. Okay, so my rating is actually going to be genius. I love it. I love everything about this. I would prefer this to be the actual canon over what happened in the other stories. So yeah, genius all
Laura,
the way.
what about you?
I'll go with genius as well. And I would like to see it put back into the context of the newer, I think it was Sony Pictures version
Illumination.
Illumination, thank you.
Yeah.
Version of the movie start with Benedict Cumberbatch. That's our favorite version
That's
now
mine too.
that we watch. Okay. That's
Yeah.
our favorite version. We watch it every Christmas now more than once.
Mhm.
And I would love to see that context placed around that Grinch and those
Yeah.
Who's to
Yeah.
see, especially with Kenan Thompson and
Mhm.
So you
was
do
it
have, like,
Angela
that-
Lansbury was the mayor.
Yeah.
And
Yep.
And Pentatonics shows up.
the pentatonic sing.
They
Yes,
do
I
have
would love
that,
to hear that.
flashback of him being alone in the orphanage.
It's so sad.
Mhm.
It is
All right.
so sad. What if that was like a concentration camp version?
Mm.
If they put it in the context of that movie, that could be almost like a concentration camp,
Yeah.
internment camp
Mhm.
location that he was the sole survivor. Oh.
Who's are
So
evil,
sad.
man?
Yep.
Yeah.
Well, I've got to give my rating too.
Yeah.
And I'm going to go with genius as well. I love it. And there are several people in the comments that are like, yeah, this is great. No one really had any big, points of contention. And so I think it's great. And even in the context you presented, Laura, with like the eradication through virus or whatever, I think that
Mhm.
still works too.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And I think it's great. So thank you all for your input.
Yay.
Let's see. Laura?
Spencer?
Michael?
Guys.
It's time to bring this episode to a close, but before we do, I'd like to share this fascinating movie detail. While I was browsing Reddit, I discovered, posted by user Chupa Chups. In A Quiet Place, all the characters are constantly unhappy despite living in a utopia where all they have is each other, and it's all they could ever need, where they never have to see from anybody else ever again. This is because the characters have not been allowed to fart for over 100 days.
I mean, that would make me unhappy. It'd be very uncomfortable.
Yeah. Not a fan of that.
Or if you're constantly getting, like SBD crop
Mhm.
dusted or
Yeah.
Dutch ovened, that's not pleasant either, because then you can't even tell the other person, hey, sorry, give them a warning. I mean,
Mhm.
you have to go out to the waterfall to fart.
Yep. It's just bad bad
And
news
wet
all around.
farts stink even
Oh.
worse. All right, well, this has been Fan Theory Queries. I'm Laura.
I'm Michael.
And I'm Spencer. Join us next time for another batch of genius, plausible, unlikely, and preposterous fan theories.